Hi, I'm Amy. I did my yoga teacher training in Merchant City Yoga in 2019 and I'm here to share a hip mobility class with you today. So I've shared a playlist alongside this class that you can use and follow on if you want, or you can use your own music or practice without, whatever feels good for you. So if you want to practice alongside the playlist, we'll start that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great, so during this class today we're going to be kind of playing around and exploring hip mobility. So I'm going to use the phrase playing around quite a lot during this class because we're going to focus not on what we can and can't do, but just kind of play around with our bodies, see what our bodies are feeling like today, see what we're able to do today. And if we find that maybe there's postures that we used to find accessible and we don't find accessible today during our practice, we're not going to judge ourselves too much. We're going to notice where we are today and just take note of that, and then we'll move on. But we're going to play around. We're going to see what our body's up for doing today. So we're going to start in a bound angle posture. So if you want to take a comfortable seat on your mat, we're going to bring the soles of our feet together and we're going to just bend our knees. So our feet don't have to be really, really close into our groin if that's not comfortable. We can move them slightly further apart. And we're just going to start to arrive at our class today. So you can choose to hold onto your feet. You can even start to open them up like a book so that the soles of your foot are shining up to the ceiling if that feels good for you. If not, it's totally fine. And you might even want to kind of butterfly your legs up and down a little bit. That can help kind of open up our hips even more, just getting ourselves a bit warmed up. So you can close your eyes if that feels good for you. I invite you to do that right now, or you can keep them open with a soft gaze if that feels nice. So we're going to take a moment. We're going to start to sit up tall. Just really feel that connection of your hip bones into the floor. We're going to allow our spine to stand straight, not poker straight. Not poker straight, but we're just going to allow ourselves to sit up tall. We're going to draw our shoulders gently back and down. I'm going to cue this quite a lot during the class, and I never mean to yank it down, just kind of think about moving them out, down, and allowing our chest to shine forward. We're going to start just by taking a couple of nice deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Last time, inhaling and exhale. Just allow your breath to return to sort of normal, just inhaling and exhaling through your nose. And start just really focusing on lengthening that breath, really finding that good quality of breath. So we're going to inhale, really feel the air moving in through your nose, down the back of your throat, filling up your chest cavity. Feel those ribs expand and feel your abdomen expand as your lungs fill with air. And then as you exhale, feel everything relax. Feel that stomach relax, moving in and down. Feel the rib cage relax, moving in and down. Feel your collarbones relaxing, moving down. Inhale, start to bring that focus from your collarbones, rib cage expansion, abdomen expansion, and exhale, that relaxation. Abdomen relaxing, rib cage relaxing, collarbones relaxing. So we're just going to carry on, noticing this breath, just for a few more breaths. Keep your focus on all those areas of the body where you can feel your breath really moving. Feel those hip bones really connecting into the ground as well. Feel yourself growing tall as you start to really plug those hip bones into the ground. just take a few more breaths there. We're going to start to slowly open our eyes, but just in your own time. And allow your breath just to return to its normal pace. So we're going to take a wee second just before we start the kind of movement phase of our class to notice how your hips feel. A lot of us have had, it's been obviously a strange couple of months. A lot of us might have been sitting more than we were used to. And so we talk about having tight shoulders. You find when you're hunched over a desk or sitting down a lot, your shoulders feel really tight, but our hips can become quite tight as well. So they can often be almost neglected. So notice if your hips feel a little bit tighter than usual, or just notice how they're feeling today. Maybe you don't notice anything, and that's totally fine as well. So just take a second throughout the class just to notice how you feel. Just taking a little pause just to pick up on how your body and how your mind and how your breath is feeling. So we're going to start by windscreen wiping our legs. So by this I mean we're going to bring our knees together, bringing both knees over to one side and then over to the other. And we're going to move with our breath. So we're inhaling to bring our knees up and exhaling to bring our knees down. Inhale, knees up, exhale, knees down. And carry on at your natural pace of breath. And just allow yourself to feel like kind of massage in the lower part of your back and in your hips. Just allowing yourself to kind of be massaged by the ground. So we're just kind of opening up our hips a wee bit. So in your last breath, we're going to inhale and come back up so our knees are pointing up to the ceiling. And we're going to move to fire logs. So fire logs isn't always accessible for everyone and every day. So we've got a couple of options here. So we can go to a figure 4 shape first. So we're keeping, say, our left leg bent. It doesn't really matter which leg you use because we'll be doing the other leg as well. You can keep your left leg bent and bring your ankle up. So it's just below your knee joint. And then you can even scoot your bum a wee bit closer to your ankle, or your ankle close to your bum if that feels good for you. And just allow yourself to feel that nice stretch along the outside of your thigh. You can move your foot closer to the joint of your hip if that feels good for you. If not, keep it up here. And you can sit up tall, or you can have your hands behind you. It's up to you. If you want to come with me into fire logs pose. So we're going to bring our left leg down, so it's kind of like, it's almost parallel with the long end of your mat, or the short end of your mat, depending on what way you're facing. And we're going to bring our right ankle onto our left knee joint. So we're being really careful as well not to press down on our knee joint. We're always going to be really careful with our knee joint. And then allowing ourselves just to kind of stack ankle over knee, knee over ankle. And we can sit up nice and tall here. We're not going to push our weight down. If we find that one of our knees is a bit further up, that's totally fine. Don't worry where we are today, just as long as it feels comfortable for you. And we can either sit up tall, or if we choose to, we can start to fold forward. And we're just going to breathe nice and deeply here. You can close your eyes if that feels good for you. And just take a moment really to feel that open up through the outside of your right thigh. We're going to take 3 more nice deep breaths here. If you want to practice with a dry breath, constricting the back of your throat slightly, feel free to do so now. So it would sound a wee bit like Darth Vader. But it's up to you whether or not you want to practice with that today. So last breath here. I usually, to come out of fire logs pose, I like to do so via figure of 4. So I'm keeping my right leg in a really similar position, but moving my left ankle away. And then you can bring your right foot back to meet your left foot. Even allow yourself to kind of windscreen wiper your legs again, just to kind of balance it out. And then we can do the other side. So we can do figure 4. Forgot which side I've done there. We can do figure 4 with our left leg on top of our right leg, if that feels good for you, or we can move into fire logs pose if that feels nice for you. And again, you can sit up tall, or you can come to a folded position. So if we're folded over, remember, we're not hunching from our back, we want that kind of hinge from our hips. We want our chest still to be nice and lifted. And we want our shoulders to be kind of drawn back and down. We're not looking to be scrunched up here. We're just starting to kind of warm up our hips a little bit. So take 3 more nice deep breaths here. Really feeling that nice quality of breath. Even maybe noticing the difference in your hips between both sides. So this is something I'll probably say throughout the practice, but you really can vary in flexibility from each side of your hips. So if you've noticed that, it's totally fine, it's totally normal, and it can change from day to day. Last breath here. So we're going to come to rock the baby. So I'm going to turn to this side a little bit so you can see it better. So moving from our fire logs or our figure 4 to rock the baby, not you baby, we're going to come into our kind of figure of 4 again, and just allow that right leg this time to extend in front of you. And keeping your left leg nice and bent, you can either bring your left hand to your left knee and your right hand to your right foot, and we can start to rock our leg back and forth. If you want to go a little bit deeper, and if that feels good for you, you can bring your knee and your foot into the crook of both elbows. And we're just rocking our foot back and forth, rocking our leg back and forth. And just allowing ourselves to open up through our hip. And we can really over-exaggerate this movement if that feels good for us as well. And this is quite a nice posture as well. You're just giving yourself a little hug. And so with our straight leg, we're going to keep our feet, our toes pointed up towards the ceiling. Keep that foot really active. And we're wanting our spine to be nice and long. Keeping your gaze on your big toes might help here. So just a couple more breaths here. Really just allowing yourself to move to what angle feels good for you, for your hip today. Our last breath here, we're going to extend that left leg out in front of us. And we're just going to come to a really gentle forward fold. So this isn't going to be our 100% best forward fold, it's the first one of our practice. So we're just going to allow ourselves to kind of fold forward, come to wherever feels good. If you're up here, that's totally fine. If you're down here, that's fine as well. Wherever you are, make sure that your chest is shining forward. And we're just going to take a couple of breaths here before we do the other side. Maybe even keeping your gaze on your toes, if that helps you. So coming to the other side, we're going to either hold our foot and our knee with our hands, or bring them into the crook of our elbow. Again, whatever feels good for you, and you might have a difference between each side. And really over-exaggerating if that feels good for you. So this is a really lovely posture as well if you're building up to full lotus or half lotus. Not only is this opening up our thigh and our hip, it's also kind of engaging our knee joint as well. 2 more breaths here. Lovely. As the last breath, we're going to extend this right leg in front of us. And we're going to come to just another forward fold. So you can even flesh out your buttocks a little bit to allow your sit bones to kind of plug into the floor. And then we're just going to lead in with our chest, hinging from our hips, come to a little comfortable forward fold. Just to kind of balance out. I mean, we're going to be working with our hips, but also engaging our calves as well. Last breath here. We're going to come up to seated. Come to an almost Dandasana position, and this is where the kind of playing aspect of this class is going to come into it. So we're going to come to Malasana or garland pose, and this is something we're going to be coming back to a lot during this class. If you know that this is something that's really accessible with you, feel free to come with me right now. We're going to bring our feet so they're about mat width apart. Maybe even bring them so they're a wee bit closer to your bum. And then this is a playing around thing. If you don't manage it on the first time, or your knees click or something like that, don't worry about it. We're going to come to Malasana. So if you were watching there and thinking, no way Amy, am I going to do that, it's totally fine. We've got blocks as well, give my cat a break. We've got blocks as well if this feels good for you. So you can use your hands to come up to a Malasana position. And if you find it's just impossible to have your heels on the floor, you can come up onto tippy toes if that feels good for you as well, if that makes it a wee bit more accessible. And then if it still really isn't feeling okay, just pop a little block underneath your bum and just allow yourself to lean your weight on the block. And we're still, it doesn't matter if you're not in the full posture, because we're still going to get that nice hip opening benefit from even the supported posture using our block. So no matter what Malasana you take, we're going to try and bring our hands to prayer, and we're almost going to use our elbows to kind of push our knees further apart, bringing our chest up, our shoulders down. So I can show you from a different angle. So we're not wanting to be scrunched down. You do get a kind of an urge just to scrunch over, but we're wanting to sit up as nice and tall as possible. Might even want to bring in a few twists if that feels good for you. If you want to stay here in Malasana, staying static, that's fantastic, and start thinking about opening up your hips. If you want to do a couple of wee twists, come with me. So we're going to bring our right hand kind of to the middle, in between our feet and about a foot in front of us. And we're going to start to reach up towards the ceiling, bringing our gaze up to follow it, keeping our shoulder away from our ear. Hello. And then we're going to bring our hand down, swapping over to the other side, bring our right hand up this time. So we're kind of twisting from the middle of our spine, not twisting our neck up. Exhale, so we're going to inhale, bring that left arm up, gaze to that thumb, and then exhale, hands down. And then last one on our right side, inhaling to bring our hand up, and then exhale to bring it down. So we could even move a wee bit deeper if that's something that we'd like to do, and bring in a bind. So there'll be a couple of little binds during this class. If you don't wish to practice it, it's totally fine. You can stay in a static Malasana or stay with those twists. So for our bind, we're going to get our right hand and start to kind of wrap it round that right leg. With our left arm, we're going to wrap it around and just see if we can catch onto our hands. If you find that your hands are pretty far apart, hold onto your t-shirt. That could be a nice little anchor point. Or if you've got a yoga strap as well, that can be really good for you. So you can bring your gaze up to the ceiling if that feels nice. And take a couple of breaths here. Exhale and bring yourself back to centre. And we can do so on the left side as well. You don't have to shift about in your mat as much as I have. But it's just in order to let you see. So we're wrapping our left arm around this time, wrapping our right arm, bringing our gaze up towards the ceiling. So feel free at this point, you can pause this video and practice these binds a wee bit more. You can do more twists if this is feeling kind of nice for you. Exhale, we're going to unbind and bring our arms to the front. If that feels good for you, you can carry on with this, but we're going to shift into a little bit more movement now. So again, we're just going to play around. We're going to be coming to our high plank, and we're going to try and kind of jump through, not jump through, we're going to try and get there from Malasana. If this is something you want to try, you can come with me. If not, you can step yourself back to high plank. So we're going to bring our hands to the front of the mat, shifting our weight forward and allowing ourselves to bring our feet back into our high plank. We're going to lower down through fuller half chaturanga with our feet, our knees on the ground. Come into upward facing dog, gaze forward. Exhale, bring your gaze between your hands and bring your hips back to downward dog. So this is the first downward dog of our class. Just allow yourself to pedal out your legs, make any movements that feel good for you. So you might want to kind of wiggle your hips back and forth. You might want to shake your head, nod your head, make any movements that feel good for you. And we're just going to be here for a couple more breaths. So we're going to come to our three-legged dog, bringing our right leg up behind us. It doesn't matter if your leg is straight or not. And we're going to bend our leg, bending our knee, bringing our knee to our nose, shifting our weight forward, and then exhale back to our three-legged dog. Inhale, knee to nose, shifting weight forward. Exhale, downward dog. Last one. Inhale, knee to nose. Exhale, three-legged dog. Bring your gaze between your hands, and we're going to step our foot up to the front of the mat. So if you find that your foot doesn't go in one movement, feel free to use your hand to move your foot up. So we're going to come to a low lunge right now, so allowing ourselves to bring our knee to the ground. If you find that you've got some knee pain, we're going to be really careful about this. If you find you've got knee pain, you can roll up your mat. So this is quite a thin mat, it doesn't really show as well. You can roll up your mat and lean on that, or you can fold up a towel or a blanket or use anything just to kind of support your knee. So come to our low lunge, keeping our chest shining forward, keeping our shoulders back and down, and then just allow your weight just to sink into your hips. Always find time to clap your cat, give him cuddles, and we're just allowing ourselves just to really sink into those hips, really feeling that psoas muscle over the front of your hip, feeling that nice stretch in there. So we can move back and forth between our low lunge and stretching our calves. If you wish, you can stay in a static low lunge if that feels good for you. If not, we're going to start to extend this right leg, bringing our hands to the floor, our gaze forward. And then inhale, coming back down to our low lunge. Exhale, straighten that leg. You can bring your toes to the point up to the ceiling as well if that feels good for you. And then exhale, coming back to our runner's lunge, our low lunge. Last time, inhale, straightening that leg, bring that gaze forward. And then exhale, back to our low lunge. So we can stay here and we can do that same movement if that feels good for you. Somebody's feeling playful. Or we can move it a wee bit further and bring our back knee off the ground. Come into a high lunge. So we can stay static here if that feels good for us. Or we can start moving back and forth in a really similar movement as we were doing before. So straightening that front leg, almost coming to a kind of fold position, so our chest is still shining forward. You can even bring your hands behind you if that feels good for you. And then inhale, back to almost a crescent lunge if that feels good for you. Exhale, inhale, come to a forward fold. And then exhale, crescent lunge. Inhale, folding forward, shining that chest forward, and then back to our crescent lunge. Bringing our arms down, allowing ourselves just to come back to that static position. So we're going to bring our hands onto the mat, framing our front foot, and we're going to bring our right leg up to our three-legged dog. So you can balance out here if that feels good for us, and then bringing our right leg down to our normal downward dog. So we're going to do the other side, but take as long as you like to kind of balance out, make any movements that feel good for you in your downward dog. And then we're going to inhale, bring our left leg up to our three-legged dog, bending that knee, inhaling, shifting your weight forward, knee to nose, and exhale, back to downward dog. Inhale, knee to nose, exhale, back. Inhale, knee to nose, exhale, three-legged dog last time. Inhale, knee to nose, exhale, back to three-legged dog. Bring your gaze up between your hands and step your foot up to the front of your mat. Bring your right knee down and come into a low lunge. So you can keep your hands on your hips if that feels good for you. And we're going to allow our hips to really sink down into the ground, down towards the ground. And just kind of get to a point that feels nice for you. So this is another one that you might notice differences in your hips between each side. You can stay static if you want, or you can bring your hands to the floor and move through the same movements that we did last time. So bringing our gaze forward, we're straightening our left leg, and then exhale, back to our lunge. Inhale, straighten that leg, gaze forward, and then exhale, back to our lunge. 2 more times. Inhale, straighten that leg. You can point your toes up to the ceiling if that feels good for you, feeling that nice stretch along your calf. Exhale to your lunge. Last time, inhale, straighten that front leg, And then exhale to a nice deep lunge. You can stay here, stay static, or you can take this a little bit further if you like. Bring your back knee off the ground and come into a higher lunge. So we might even do our crescent lunge again. Bring our arms above our body, gaze to our thumbs if that feels good for you. Straighten that front leg, folding over, still leading with our chest. Bring our arms behind us. Inhale, crescent lunge. Exhale, folding forward. Inhale, come to our crescent lunge. It's kind of tricking your balance as well, so if you're wobbling around the place, it's fine. And exhale, folding forward. Inhale, crescent lunge. And exhale, leading with your chest, folding forward. Last time. Inhale, crescent lunge. And exhale, folding forward. So coming back to our high lunge, we're going to again bring our hands to the floor, framing our front foot and stepping back to our downward dog. Take a wee second here just to wiggle your hips, make any movement you like. Kiss your cat, do whatever feels good. Come back to that breath. If you're already feeling quite warm, a little bit sweaty, you can come down to child's pose, bringing your knees about mat width apart, bring your big toes together and sitting down on your heels, bring your head to the ground. So our last breath here, we're going to bring our gaze between your hands and again step our right foot to the front of our mat. So this time we're going to come to a Trikonasana, or triangle. So our right toes or our front foot is facing forward. Our back foot is parallel with the short end of our mat. So take your feet about leg length and a bit apart, if that feels nice for you. And we're going to bring our arms up so they're horizontal. So we're wanting our shoulders to be relaxed, but our arms to be nice and engaged. And we're going to allow our spine to stand up tall, and then we're going to start to lean forward as if you're trying to grab something in front of you, keeping that front leg straight, not locked out. Got a soft bend in there. And then we're going to flip our hands and bring the back of our hand to somewhere on the inside of our right leg. So if your hand is up here, that's totally fine. I'd rather you bring your hand up your leg a little bit and be kind of scrunched over, trying to reach towards your foot. And your hand can stay on your hip if that feels good for you, or it can come up to the ceiling and following with your gaze and keeping that on your thumb. So if you feel like it's accessible for you today, you can also bring your index and middle finger round and hook onto your big toe. So it helps as well. You can wrap your top arm around your body and just give a little hug. Encourage you to lift that chest. No matter where your hand is, if it's down by your foot or up here, up further up your leg, we're making sure that our chest is lifted and opened. So last breath here, bring your gaze down to your front big toe, and we're going to come back up to standing. Take a wee second to wiggle out your hips. And you might even want to reset your feet if they've kind of moved apart slightly. So we're going to do a wide leg forward fold. So taking your feet, again about leg length a bit apart, and slightly turning your toes in. So I quite like rocking my hips back and forth, just to find that kind of sweet spot of balance. And just allowing yourself to kind of, your hips to adjust for a wee second. So we're going to have our hands on our hips, rolling your shoulders back and down gently, opening up that chest, and we're going to start to hinge from our hips, letting our chest lead forward. So this is where a block can come in handy. If you feel like the ground is just too far away from you, you can grab a block and bring your hands onto that, or even down onto fists. Can be quite a nice way to be stable. If you feel like the ground is maybe accessible for you right now, you can bring your hands, your palms, or your fists onto the ground. If you feel like you've got even more space, you can start to walk your hands underneath your body so they're more in line with your feet. No matter where you are, we're going to inhale to straighten our back, bring our gaze forward, and then exhale, we're going to fold forward. So no matter what posture you're in, or what variation you're in, we're going to make sure that our shoulders are brought back and down, so we're not scrunched up. And if you're a little bit further down, we're going to make sure that our elbows are drawn in, so we're not wanting to be kind of sticking out to the side. This just gives a wee bit more stability. We're going to take 3 more breaths here. You can even kind of rock back and forth if that feels good for you. You can feel that balance. Last breath here. So we're going to bring our, we're going to straighten our back, bring our gaze forward. Our back should be straight anyway, but can I cut that? We're going to bring our chest up, bring our hands to our hips, and with really strong legs, on our inhale, we're going to come up to standing. So you might want to, if your feet have kind of scooched out to the side a little bit like mine have, you might want to bring them in a little bit. And we're going to do triangle or Asana on the other side. So this time our left foot is pointing to the short edge of the mat, and our right foot is parallel to the short edge of the mat. So take a wee moment just to find your balance. Bring your arms up horizontal, gaze to your front hand, and we're going to start to lean forward. Bring the back of our hand onto some point on the inside of our leg, either keeping our hand on our hip or bringing it above us, gaze to our thumb. Or if we feel like we've got the space today, hooking our index and our middle finger around our big toe. Again, if it feels nice for you, you can wrap your top arm round, giving yourself a little hug. And just encourage that opening up through your chest. So your gaze can be at your thumb or it can be forward. Gazing up at your thumb can be kind of difficult for your balance. So do whatever feels good for you today. Just 2 more nice deep breaths here. Really feel that movement of the breath through your entire abdomen. Last breath here. We're going to gaze down to our left foot this time and come up to our standing position again. So this time we're going to keep our feet as they were, so our right foot is parallel, our left foot is pointing towards the short end of the mat, and we're going to play around with kind of side lunges. So this is, again, if you fall over during this, it's totally fine. Darling. So keeping our feet in the same position that we had them in Asana, we're going to play around with side lunges. So this is one of those kind of postures that we're not going to be too precious with. If we fall over in it, it's fine. We're just going to play around for right now. So we're going to start by bending this right knee and coming down to a kind of squat position, allowing our left leg to straighten and our toes to point up to the boards of the ceiling. So if you feel like you can bring your foot flat to the ground, then you can definitely do so, but if you've got a bit of a heavy bum like me, you might fall over. And if you feel like your balance just really isn't possible here, you can bring a block to the ground as well and hold on to that, allowing yourself just to get a little bit of balance. So we can bring our hands to prayer if that feels good for us, if your balance allows it. And then this is where we're going to play around, shifting our weight from one side to the other, trying not to put our hands on the ground, but if we need to, that's totally fine. So we're going to inhale, switching legs, exhale, come to our side lunge. Inhale, switching legs, exhale, side lunge. Inhale, switching legs, exhale, side lunge. Inhale, switch legs, and exhale, side lunge. 2 more. Inhale, you're really, really feeling that in your legs and your hips. And exhale, last side. Inhale, and exhale in here. So we've got the option here, we could even try a bind if this is something that we're interested in. So you can keep on switching from leg to leg, or maybe just bring yourself to a place of stillness. But we can wrap our right arm around our bent leg, So our right leg, grasping a hold of our right hand with our left hand and bringing our gaze up towards the ceiling. And breathe in here. So we're making sure that we're not scrunched over. We want our heart to be lifted and opened. And again, if you fall over, it's totally fine. Letting go of our bind and switching our legs over. So you find that your balance might be different on different days, and that's totally normal. And again, we can bind here if we like. Wrapping that left arm around. I can show you from the other side. Wrapping the left arm around, and then grasping a hold of our hand, and bring our gaze up towards the ceiling. Trying to find a bit of stillness. If that doesn't come, it's fine. Last breath here. I'm going to let go of this bind, and we're going to cartwheel our hands to frame our front foot. And we're going to come to a lizard pose. So if needs be, you can shift your foot forward if that feels good for you. And bringing our hands to the inside. I'm going to show on the other leg, just so that you can see a little bit better. So bring both hands to the inside of our front foot, with our knee to the ground, our chest lifted and our gaze just in front of our mat. If we want to take this a little bit deeper, we can come onto the ball of our back toes and take our left knee off the ground. If we've got a left knee off the ground and we want to go even deeper than that, we can bring our elbows onto the ground. Still keeping our gaze forward, try not to scrunch over, and keeping our knee into our shoulder as much as possible. We can even bring our knee down, and you can also use, so what I quite like is to open up my hip in a slightly different orientation. Whenever I'm in low lizard, I like to just allow my knee to flop out to the side, so I can use my hand. We're not pushing it away, we're just allowing the weight of your hand to kind of push your hip outwards or your knee outwards. Whatever feels nice for you. So coming back to whatever variation of lizard you felt most comfortable with. We're going to start to heel toe our foot into the middle between both of our hands. And again, we're going to play around here. So I'm going to take my hands just in front of me. You've also got a choice of taking 2 blocks in front of you as well. And I'm going to start to slowly shift my weight into my hands, straightening that front leg and raising that left leg. Coming to a point of stillness, hopefully. And then seeing if we can come to our warrior 3. Or if you want, you can stay down in standing splits. But as you can see, not everybody has splits in their repertoire. So just take whatever feels good for you. We're going to check behind us, make sure that there's no cats in the way, and step our back leg back. And we're going to come to our high lunge. Taking any kind of small movements, so you might notice me kind of bobbing up and down, just to allow your hips to kind of get back to normal. We're going to exhale, framing our front foot with our hands, stepping back to high plank, lowering down through full or half chaturanga, up to our upward dog or to our cobra, and then hips back to downward dog. So we've got the option here, we can take our knees down to the mat, bring our big toes together and coming down to child's pose, or you can stay in downward dog if that feels good for you. Child's pose is quite an underrated hip opener in my opinion, because I think it's one of those nice postures where you're still getting the benefit of opening up your hips without it being too powerful, too strenuous. It's quite a nice kind of relaxed posture as well. But if child's pose doesn't feel comfortable for you, don't feel bad. There's a lot of postures that people say are resting postures that just aren't resting postures for everyone. So we're all going to join everyone back in downward dog, and we're going to come to our three-legged dog with our opposite foot this time. Bringing our gaze forward, we're going to step our foot through and come to lizard on the other side. So we've got our three options again here. We have our low lizard, hands on the floor, knees on the floor, gaze forward. We can take our back knee off. We can even kind of allow our knees flop out to the side, knee on the ground or off the ground, if that feels good for you. Or if you've got your back knee off, you can even come down to a low lizard. Whatever feels nice for you. And we're going to take 5 breaths here. Really feeling that opening up through our hip. And this is a posture as well. Remember, everybody's built different. Some postures are easier for some people and more difficult for other people. So if this isn't really accessible for you, or it's not really that comfortable, if it's painful, come out of the posture. But if it's not that accessible, don't worry about it. Everybody's built differently. So last breath, we're going to bring our knee down to the ground if it wasn't there already. And we're going to heel toe our foot so it's framing both of our hands. We're going to come into our standing splits again. But remember, in standing splits, you don't have to be in full splits. I know I'm certainly not Lemon. So we're going to bring our hands forward. And remember, you can bring them onto blocks as well if that feels good for you. Straightening that front leg, bringing that back leg so it's straight. Remembering to bring our shoulders back and down. Open up through our chest. We can stay here or we can play around with our balance. Woo. Coming up to our warrior 3. Taking a nice couple of breaths here. Remembering that your balance can change from day to day, and sometimes you're a bit wobblier than others. So we're going to check behind us, make sure that there's no cats there, and step back to our high lunge. Making any kind of movements that feel good for you. So we're going to step our feet up to the front of the mat for a second and just come into a kind of mountain pose. So take a wee moment to walk your legs out if that feels nice for you, and we're going to play around a little bit again. These are going to be tired of hearing me playing around. So we're going to come to tree and then maybe see if bird of paradise is going to be for us today. And no judgment if we find ourselves too wobbly, or our hips just don't feel it today, or our calves kind of restrict how straight we can get our leg. It doesn't matter. We're just going to take it to wherever our body feels right. So we're going to start by balancing on our left leg. Take a short moment just to allow your foot to really ground onto the floor. So spreading those toes, you can even raise your toes off the ground and lower them down one by one, allowing them to spread. And really imagine that tripod between your pinky toe, your big toe and your heel. Really, really feel that balance in between those 3 points. That's one of the weird side effects from yoga, is you get really flexible feet. So we're going to start to ground into the floor, switching on all those muscles in our legs. And we're not locking our knee out, we're going to have a soft bend in it. And we're going to start just by bringing our heel into our ankle, and if that feels good for us, we can stay there if that feels nice. If we want, we can bring our foot up into the inside of our calf, not into the inside of your knee, because you end up like this, you end up pushing your knee joint out to the side, so try and avoid that as much as possible. Or if it feels good for us, we can even bring our foot into the inside of our thigh. Now you can stay here if that feels nice for you. No matter which variation, if you try and imagine, so it doesn't have to be a big movement, if you try and imagine your knee moving slightly back away from the front of your mat, it acts as a really nice hip opener. It doesn't need to be a huge movement, just enough that you're kind of noticing it. And if you want to try, so we've been playing around with all of these binds during the class. If you want, we could try Bird of Paradise. So this personally isn't one that I practice that often. It's not one that I can always nail, but it's one I enjoy practicing, and if I fall over, it's fine. So I just hope that you'll come with me if you feel up to it, and if we fall over together, and it's fine. So what I'm going to do to come into Bird of Paradise is I'm going to bring that right leg up a little bit, hooking my right arm underneath, come into a bind again. So we can stay here if that feels good for you, or we can start to straighten that leg. So as you can see, I can't always straighten my leg. Show it from behind. Oops. We're just going to breathe here for a moment. Last breath here, letting go of our hands, bringing ourselves back to tree, and moving down our foot back to the ground. And give yourself a moment just to wiggle your hips out, kind of balance that energy from both sides of your hips. And we're going to do the same on the other side. So this time we're going to ground down through our right foot. Do the same again. Anything that helps you balance. It's better that we spread our toes out and increase our surface area rather than trying to white knuckle grip into our mat. If you think about wearing trainers versus high heels, easier to walk in trainers because there's more surface area touching the ground than high heels. So it's kind of like that. So come into whatever tree feels good for you, into the inside of your ankle, inside of your knee, inside your thigh, whatever feels nice for you. And as you can see, depending on how your day's been, how you're feeling that day, how busy your day's been, sometimes your balance can be really, really affected. So sometimes one of my legs is fine, my other leg isn't. Sometimes I can balance, sometimes I can't. It doesn't mean it's not really a reflection on your ability, it's just what your body's doing on the day. So again, we can stay here in tree if that feels good for us, imagining as if we're pulling our knee slightly back, not a big movement, it's more kind of an intention than a movement. And then if we feel up to it, we can come into a kind of Bird of Paradise. So raising that left knee up, allowing our left arm to bind round, and gripping onto our right hand, our left hand. And we can straighten our leg if it's possible, or we can keep it bent if that feels good for us. Staying here for a few more breaths, keeping that chest nice and lifted. And then exhale, letting go of our hands. Coming back to tree, moving our foot down, and then coming back to our mountain pose. Allowing ourselves to kind of wiggle out our knees a wee bit. So we've got two options here. We can either come down straight to child's pose, or we can bring our feet so they're a bit hip width apart, and just come down to our Malasana. So if you're thinking, oh my god, I've had enough of Malasana, this is it. You can come down to child's pose and we'll all join you there in a few breaths. But if you fancy just a wee bit more Malasana, you can come and join us here. So again, this is one of those postures, some people it's a big no-no, and for other people it's really, really comfortable. So this is just another reminder that everyone is built differently. We all have different experiences with different sports that have built up different muscles over the years. We have different professions, we have different lifestyles, and all of this influences how our body moves. So if you find that your body doesn't look the same or move the same as other people practicing yoga, it's fine, we're all different. And some postures are great, some postures aren't. It just matters how your body feels. And even if you don't notice anything, the fact that you've taken a short moment to become body aware just for a moment is always going to be really beneficial. So we're starting to slow our practice down now. You can bring your knees down, your toes together, and come into a child's pose. And really start thinking about allowing your hips to almost melt into the floor. So we're going to start to slow down but I do have 3 downward dogs left in the class, just in case you're like, that's not slowing down, Amy. So you can pause this video and stay in child's pose for a little bit longer, or you can come with me to downward dog, just for a breath. We're just literally using it to come into our pigeon. So bring your gaze forward, we're going to lift that right knee off the ground, and this time we're going to try and place it quite close to our right wrist. Bringing our back leg and our back knee down into the floor. So you can keep your foot kind of near your groin if that feels better for you, or you can kind of bring it up so it's a wee bit more parallel to the front of your mat. So this is where our blocks or our towels or our blankets will come into play, because we're going to have a bit of a supported pigeon here. We're not doing this, it's not our number one best pigeon, it's a wee bit more kind of like as if we were practicing a yin practice. We're just allowing our props and the floor to support our weight. So we can stay up seated with our chest lifted, or we can start to walk forward. Either kind of crossing your arms and bring your head down, if that feels nice, or bring your forehead down onto the mat. So we're really starting to slow our breath down here. Start feeling that stretch along the outside of our thigh. Really feeling our hip opening up. Now we can stay here for longer if you like. We're just going to stay for a few more breaths. But if pigeon's really what you're feeling right now, then you can pause this video and just kind of chill out in your pigeon for a while. This is one of those postures that I find some days feel so good and other days I'm like, get me out of pigeon right now. So just notice where you are today and then practice with that. So we're going to take 5 more breaths here. Again, feel free to pause and stay here a bit longer. Really let your hips sink into the ground, or into the block, or into the blanket, whatever you have supporting you. We're not really using our muscles to support ourselves, we're just allowing ourselves to be supported by gravity and by our props. Our last breath here, we're going to bring our gaze up and walk our hands up. So we're coming to our kind of upward pigeon. That's not the word for it. We're going to place our hands on the floor. So palms really fuse into the ground. We're going to come up onto our back toes and come up to just a quick 3-legged dog. Coming to our normal downward dog, pedaling out your legs, however feels good for you, and then again, we're going to pick up our left knee, shifting our weight forward, bring our left knee to our left wrist, bringing our block back in, or whatever prop that we have, bringing our back knee down. Now of course you can stay up with your chest lifted, or we can come down to a more kind of resting pigeon. You can also pop a little block underneath your head if that feels nice for you. Just take this time to really feel your practice. So we've just got a few more postures before our relaxation, but just take your time. You can pause the video, or you can keep on carrying on. Notice how your hips feel after your practice. Are they starting to feel a wee bit more open? Are they still tight? It's totally fine if they feel the exact same as before. Just the fact that you've brought attention to your hips is really beneficial. If you even feel that you feel a bit different emotionally from your practice, that is totally normal as well. A lot of our emotions can be stored in our hips, you know, that tight hips, wound up kind of feeling where we're not expressing ourselves the way that we would maybe like to. means that a lot of emotion can be stored in our hips. So when you do classes that include a lot of hip openers, if you feel a big rush of emotions, don't worry, I've been there too. I've literally burst out crying in class before, after doing a hip opener class. So if that's something that you're kind of experiencing right now, it can be normal. So our last few breaths here. I'm going to remove the block from underneath me, so any prop that you had underneath you, and we're going to gently make our way onto our back, but we're going to keep this front leg bent because we're going to hug our left leg in once we're on our back. So we're just kind of going to roll over onto our back. I don't know how graceful that was, and just bringing our left leg in to give it a little hug, just for a few breaths. Again, feel free to pause this class at any point and go at your own pace. So you can stay here if this feels really nice for you, or we can come into a figure of four again. So we're going to start to bend this right leg, bring your foot onto the ground, and allowing your left ankle to go just below your right knee. So you can stay here if this feels nice, or you can start looping your hands around the back of this standing leg. You can even bring your foot in a little bit closer to your hip if that feels nice for you. So you can extend this leg if that feels nice for you, because you'll get that nice stretch along your calf as well. Or if you want an even kind of deeper hip stretch along your left hip, the outside of your left thigh, you can even link your hands around your shin. And you can even draw that knee a little bit closer. So this doesn't have to be a big movement, it can be an intention. You can close your eyes over. Start coming into that place of relaxation. Maybe listen to the music, or if you haven't got any on, just allow yourself to be lost for a moment. Last breath here. Unlink your hands if you had them clasped. Bring that right foot onto the ground. I'm going to hug my left leg in and extend my right leg. And then I'm going to bring my right knee in, just hugging both of my knees in. You can even rock from side to side if that feels good for you. Maybe doing little circles with your knees, clockwise then anti-clockwise. And you feel that kind of massage of the back of your hips on the floor. So we're going to switch over, just bringing our right knee in and extending that left leg, if that feels good. So again, you can stay here if that feels nice for you, or you can bring that left leg in. Come to the figure four on the other side. So you might notice that one side has different needs from the other. Maybe you need a deeper stretch on one side than the other. Maybe they're both the same. Just go with how your body feels. I think quite often we can listen to our ego more than our body. We really want to push ourselves to the best that we can do. And sometimes the best that we can do is the best thing for our body. So if that means taking it back and doing maybe an easier version of that posture, if that feels better for our body, then that's the one that we're needing to do. So our last breath here. We're going to bring that left foot down to the floor, hugging that right knee in, and extending that left leg. So these are lovely postures because you can feel that openness throughout the front of your thigh as well. And then we're going to hug both our knees in, either staying here or we can come to happy baby. So we've got loads of variations for happy baby. Everyone's got different, their hips are open to different, everyone's hips are different. So you can hold onto your knees and just kind of encourage your knees to draw down into your armpits if that feels good for you. You could hold on to your ankles or your calves. You can hold on to the outsides of your feet, or even using your index and middle fingers, looping around your big toes. And we're just drawing our knees back and down into the floor. You can even rock from side to side, massaging the middle of your back. Obviously you can close your eyes and just allow yourself to melt into the floor. So we're not forcing anything. We're just allowing our hips to kind of wind down a little bit. We've done loads of work during this class. It's just time to kind of have a wee chill. So stay here for as long as you want. I think we're just going to stay for a couple more breaths. But of course, this is your practice. Be selfish. Do whatever your body or your mind needs to do today. We're going to bring our knees together, hugging them in. And then bringing our feet down to the ground. So again, we can windscreen wiper our legs if that feels good for us. So on our exhale, bringing our knees down to one side. Inhale, knees to centre. Exhale, knees down to one side. Inhale to centre. We can even have our arms like cactus arms right now. Just move in time with your breath to whatever feels good for you. I'm not sure if the microphone's picked up on it, but all the clunks and creaks in my hips just makes it feel like it's been quite a good class. So come to a static position just whenever feels good for you. We can come to a kind of recline bound angle pose. Obviously it's not bound. Bringing the soles of your feet together and just letting your knees flop out to the outside. So your hands can be on your abdomen, for example, one above your heart and one in your stomach, or they can be on your hips or your thighs, just encouraging that movement down. So we're going to move into the relaxation portion of our practice. And you can take Shavasana, so corpse pose, bringing your feet about mat width apart, allowing your toes to flop out to the side, bringing your hands so they're by your hips, palms facing the ceiling, gently tucking your shoulders underneath you to protect your spine. Or you can remain in this reclined kind of diamond posture, whatever feels good for you. If you feel like you just want a wee bit more loving in your hips, and you can come to this if that feels nice. If you're done with hips for today, feel free to take Shavasana. If you need any blankets or anything to keep yourself warm, then grab them now. And we're just going to start to check in with our breath. Start to slow your breathing down with intention. Feel that movement of your breath. Expanding your collarbones, your rib cage, your abdomen. Feel that expansion, feeling yourself fill up with air. And then as you exhale, feel that relaxation spreading through your entire body. Each time you exhale, start to imagine as if you're melting into the ground. As if you're a little square of butter on warm toast. Each exhale, just feel that relaxation spreading throughout your body. We're moving our focus away from using our muscles to hold the posture. And we're starting to move to just allowing ourselves to be supported by the ground. Allowing ourselves to melt. Allowing our muscles to relax. Allowing ourselves to really feel the benefits of our practice. Inviting softness into our body, and into our mind. So feel free to stay here for longer if that feels good for you. If you feel like you want just a little bit more stillness before you get on with whatever you're doing today, feel free to pause the video and just carry on at your own pace. Starting to become more aware of the sensation of your body on the floor. Start to feel all those points between your body and the floor, your feet and the floor, your legs, your buttocks, your back, the backs of your arms, the back of your neck, the back of your head. Start to feel every point of your body that's connected with and supported by the floor. Feel yourself heavy. Notice your breath starting to extend, not forcing anything. And slowly starting to become aware of our surroundings. We can keep our eyes closed if that feels good for us. And just start by gently rolling your head over to the right hand side. Allowing yourself to roll the rest of your body over onto the right hand side. And using your left hand under your right temple just to support yourself in the fetal position. Just take a moment to find balance, physical and mental. If you like, you can keep your eyes shut, and we're going to gently press ourselves up to a comfortable seated position. Come to any position that feels comfortable for you, and just check in with your body for a moment. We're going to start by rubbing our palms together just to generate a little bit of heat in our hands. And then we're going to place them over our eyes. Starting to really slowly blink our eyes open. You can feel your eyelashes on the inside your palms as if you're holding onto a butterfly. Gently. And we're going to start to gently spread our fingers apart, letting in a little bit more light. And then eventually removing our hands from our face. So thank you so much for joining me for this class. I hope you have a lovely day. And thank you so much, it's really appreciated. You can finish the class any way you want to. I'm going to finish with an Om. Feel free to join in, you don't have to. So we're going to bring our hands to prayer. Just finding a little moment of stillness. Inhaling through your nose. Peace in the universe and peace in our hearts. Om Shanti. I wonder if it's recorded at all. I don't think it has. I don't think